Hey guys, welcome to session number 43 of the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. I'm listening. One man who met Dave Grohl outside the Louvre in Paris. Welcome to the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another session of the Trailer Music Podcast. I'm so happy to have you listening, of course. Thank you so much for taking the time. And before I dive in this week's episode, I would just like to, not plead, because that sounds a bit desperate, doesn't it? But maybe just ask kindly, in a gentlemanly fashion, if you guys could spare a moment to head on over to whichever podcasting platform it is, preferably iTunes, and just leave me a little review, just to let people know what they can expect from this podcast. It's really helpful for meaning that other people can find this resource, and of course it's good for my ego, isn't it? Let's not beat about the bush. I'm also asking for my ego, but also so other people can find it. And the way the rankings work, it means that I get a little boost. So thanks, chaps. I really do appreciate that. Now, on to slightly more important things. Now, last week's episode, I dealt with what tools you need for this podcast. What tools you need to be a trailer music composer. What essential tools you need. What essential tools I need to write my music and other composers need. So you can go check out that one. That was last week's episode if you're still like, ooh, tools, what do I use? What do I need? There we go, I dive into that. But today I'm covering, this is a very special one for me, because this is the one that you can't buy in the shops. Well, I suppose you could, actually, if you bought one of, sign up to Trailer Music School or Protégé with me and Vic, which we do kind of cover this extensively. But anyway, I kind of want to dive into it because actually I feel it's so important for you guys to understand this. Because it's all you need to know to write decent trailer music. In fact, not just trailer music, decent cinematic music. And if you can master these three things, then pretty much every genre you cover, you're going to smash it out of the park. So there are three things. So I'm actually going to do them kind of in order, as if I was listening to the cue. The first thing you must master and must understand to write the best trailer music possible is atmosphere. He says, listening to the cars go past. You got to think about what you're doing as a composer. You are creating another atmosphere for the company creating the trailer. Your music has to do, as you heard Rick Thomas talk about in the interview with him a few months back, you have to tell the viewers the things that the pictures can't. So you could see, it could open to a woman's back overlooking some hills, right? Now that could be anything until the music comes in. And the music tells everyone what it's going to be. If it opens up with a celeste and a children's choir, this is going to go sort of magical fantasy. If it opens with a high harmonic on the violins with sort of a tinkly, twinkly piano melody, it's going to be something sort of epic, family, possibly even adventure. That's a bit more down the middle, that one. If it opens with, some terrifying drone, we're going to go horror. You create the atmosphere that the pictures cannot, and you do that the instant your listener presses play. That is huge. And the thing is, it's not just about using the samples that I mentioned. It's not just about going violin, harmonic, go, although that is quite a nice way to start it. It's about thinking about the spaces you're creating. Because the spaces you're creating are creating the atmosphere of your music. And I'm not just talking about necessarily the mood atmosphere, I'm talking about the physical atmosphere. If you put that violin harmonic in a tiny spring reverb, it's going to create a very, very different atmosphere to if you put it into a big convolution reverb of a church. So you need to think about the way your sounds are sitting in the mix. And I mean, when I say in the mix, I mean in the aural landscape. Because you're creating an atmosphere, guys. It's so important. And you can create an atmosphere with bad sounding samples, but you can do it very, very effectively. I almost felt like I was telling you off then. Sorry. Because so many people miss this trick. First of all, I press play. Within the first second, I should know instantly what type of atmosphere I'm going in for. And, you know, some of you might argue that actually sometimes when a trailer opens, it's just a fifth, a first and a fifth playing. I mean, there's no tonal reference going on there. I don't know where it went semi-posh. And you're right, there is no tonal reference with a perfect fifth interval. But there is an atmosphere with the instrumentation, with the reverb, with the effects, everything else you do. And you might want to leave it kind of semi-plain, and that's why I think so many trailers start with string harmonics and a piano, because they don't have any temporal reference, they don't have any geographical reference, and that's the beauty of piano and strings. And to an extent brass and woods and most orchestral stuff. Anyway, but you create the atmosphere. I should be able to press play and hear this kind of like very, very simple piano arpeggio and know exactly what's going to happen. Or at least know the realm I'm in. It doesn't have to be the specific realm, but it has to be, you know, okay, I'm definitely in, brain, some world I can't remember the name of. It's going to come to me. It's going to come to me. No, it's not come to me. I was going to say the place where they've set the Lord of the Rings. Guys, I'm kicking myself so hard. Not literally, metaphorically, I'm kicking myself so hard because I love that book. Those books. Oh my gosh. If only you guys were here, it'd be even more embarrassing. That place. Middle Earth. There we go. Whew. There we go. So you guys know instantly, I'm in Middle Earth. I don't necessarily know if I'm in Hobbiton or not, but I'm definitely in Middle Earth. It took me a while to get to this metaphor, but we got there in the end. And that's just creating your atmosphere. So next time you start your cue, think to yourself, am I creating atmosphere in my Act 1? Am I creating atmosphere here? Now this second one is possibly the most important one. Maybe I should leave it till last. No, I'm not going to. I would say it's possibly the most important one. It relates to structure specifically, and it's your ability to build. To build in intensity. Not build in brickwork, but build in intensity and pace and drama and emotion, and keep the tracks growing. So many times I've heard a student's track, or even a professional track, and they haven't got the build. Everything else is right, but the build isn't there. So it doesn't feel like it's growing. You feel like, I'm just sat on a loop for a while. The most successful ones, you feel like it's building and growing, you know. And that's the magic to it. Building a track is actually one of the simplest, but so often misunderstood things when it comes to writing effective cinematic music. It's essentially, imagine you've got a line of your orchestra all standing in a line, and you're at the front of the line, and if you think of it like this, each player is playing a slightly different part, or even just a little, you know, just a little ditty, kind of like Terry Riley's in C. They've got this little cube, the loop that they're playing, and you just start at the line and you say, violin 1, go, and then you step to the next player, go, 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 and you gradually build the track like that, layer by layer, single element by single element, and you will notice that you could write an 8-bar loop, just an 8-bar loop, boom, there we go, and you can build a very, very effective cue just from that 8-bar loop, because you introduce the elements one by one. It's like you're building Lego blocks, and hence the build, guys. This is amazing. There's a massive red toadstool here. I think it's called you can correct me, flyagaric? That one. The classic red one. Awesome. Should take a photo, but obviously I'm talking on my phone. So, anyway, build. So you've got your cue. Does this feel like it's building? Am I introducing two elements at the same time? If so, stop it. Introduce one element at a time. Because that gives you the time to make this single idea you have last for 2 minutes 20 into a great, great cue. And I'm not saying that all of your trailer cues should be an 8-bar loop, but that is the principle behind building a cue, building a successful and effective trailer cue. And this works especially well for advertising too. So those of you who don't know, I started my career in advertising music. I've just sidestepped into motion picture advertising music. That's the word. I got there in the end. And the principles are still the same. If you can master the build, you've set the atmosphere, now you're mastering the build into the final bit, I'm going to explain in a second, then your tracks are going to just be like, great, I love this. And the reason you do this, the reason you put the build in and you do this is so that you can help the editors, help them have an easier life by they just plop it down there and immediately it creates the growth, the tension, the build, the emotion that they would need from their visuals, the tempo, everything. It's so simple, but blimey is it so often misused. So there we go, build. Now the third one, this one's a bit of a general one, really. I suppose actually atmosphere and build is general too. I say general because it's not quite so specific. There's no wonderful analogy I can do here, really. Except, I suppose I could, but the third one is you've mastered your atmosphere, you've mastered the build, now you need to master impact. And that can be a literal translation of impact, as in the impact of a 6-foot hammer smashing into a tam-tam, that type of opening on the Indiana Jones film. Or it could be the impact as in a dynamic impact, like the shock of a new sound, the shock of something different. Impactful almost implies there is a element of surprise. So you've got to figure out your final thirds often need to have impact, not necessarily size, but impact. And how you go about that could be big drums, it could be an interesting sample, it could be a fat synth. Often we do stop downs to increase the impact of the final third. That's why we do them. Because it's like sob, 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 sob. And the impact is so much louder because it's been instantly compared to something quieter. That's a tool to create impact. The other way to create impact is having all of those layers that you've been building one by one happen in unison at the same time. All of a sudden, rather than it just being the strings playing that chord, it's the strings, brass, woods, choir. Boo, boo. It creates impact. Or in a horror cue, the impact might be created by you sticking to a tempo of 120 and then you do a stop for 2 beats into a tempo of 150. The tempo increase, even though there's not necessarily any new material, gives you the impact. It's really cool. Because the moment I realised it wasn't necessarily always about something being huge, and it was more about having impact, was the moment I was set free, mentally. So yeah, atmosphere, build, and impact. How can you do that? How can you do that on a solo piano track? How can you do that in a pizzicato strings track? How can you do that with sort of upbeat pop? How can you do that? How can you create atmosphere, build, and impact? Now it's up to you to translate this message into music and into actual tracks that people can listen to and enjoy. But those are the three things. The best tracks I hear, from me as well, are the ones that have an atmosphere. They have a good build and they have impact. Right guys, as per usual, I want to say thank you so much for listening. Thank you for joining me on the chat. That sounds like I'm on MSN or something, doesn't it? On joining me in this chat with Richard Schreiber. And as per usual, head on over to the Trailer Music School if you want to know more about creating trailer music. Head on over to protege.school if you want to really take your music career up to the next level. Yeah, you guys are absolute legends, and like I said, just do a chap a favour and leave a review. Thank you. See you next week, guys.